I live in a quiet town called Eldridge, nestled in the forests of Oregon, where nothing ever seems to happen. I'm 16, just a typical teenager, spending my days skateboarding with friends and losing myself in video games. But one autumn afternoon, everything changed. It was late October, and I was in my backyard enjoying the crisp fall air when something caught my eye. There was a strange shape sticking out from beneath a bush at the edge of the tree line. My curiosity got the better of me, and I walked over to investigate. As I crouched down, my heart raced. What I found was horrifying. A human finger, pale and lifeless, half buried in the dirt. Its fingernail was chipped, and there were stains on it that looked like dry blood. A tarnished ring still adorned the finger, delicate yet ominous, hinting at a life that once was. A wave of nausea washed over me as I glanced around, half expecting to see someone watching from the shadows, but my backyard was empty, the only sound being the rustling leaves in the gentle fall breeze. I hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of what I had just discovered settle in my stomach. Should I tell someone? My mind raced with the possibilities of how it could have ended up there. As I picked it up, I felt a strange warmth radiating from it, almost electric. Instinctively, I dropped it, but not before catching a glimpse of a small, faded tattoo on its side. An intricate design of interlocking circles and swirling lines that seemed to pulse with an unworldly energy. The thought of calling the police crossed my mind, but something held me back. Who would believe a 16-year-old about a disembodied finger with a strange tattoo? I imagined their skeptical looks, the endless questions, and the possibility of them thinking it was some kind of prank. Besides, there was something about the finger that felt personal, like it was meant for me to find. That night, I couldn't shake the image of the finger from my mind. Sleep eluded me as I lay in my bed, the shadows in my room stretching into grotesque shapes. As I drifted in and out of sleep, I began to hear a faint voice calling my name. Soft, melodic, yet laced with desperation. The next day, I felt an odd compulsion to return to the spot where I had found the finger. To my surprise, the ground was undisturbed, as if nothing had ever been there. Confused and frustrated, I searched the area, half hoping to find more clues. That's when I noticed a trail of tiny indentations leading deeper into the woods. Compelled by an inexplicable urge, I followed the trail. As I ventured further into the trees, the air grew cold and heavy. Sunlight barely penetrated the dense canopy above, and the whispers I had heard the night before intensified. They were no longer just whispers. Now they sounded like distant cries echoing through the trees. Heart pounding, I pressed on until I stumbled upon a small clearing. In the center stood a dilapidated cabin, its walls covered in vines and decay. The whispers grew louder, now unmistakably pleading, "Help us, help us." Against my better judgment, I approached, the door creaking ominously as I pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and despair. I froze in horror at what I saw. A circle of dismembered hands, each adorned with the same intricate tattoo I had seen on the finger. The tattoos seemed to shimmer in the dim light, their patterns of interwoven circles and spirals forming an eerie, hypnotic design. Panic surged through me, and I turned to run, but the door slammed shut, trapping me inside. The whispers turned into screams, and the shadows began swirling around me, taking the forms of the lost souls whose fingers had been severed. They reached out, desperate for release. In a moment of sheer terror, I remembered the finger. I pulled it from my pocket and held it up, as if it were a talisman. The shadows hesitated for a brief moment. The screams softened into cries of hope, but then, without warning, the finger bursts into flames. I managed to break free from the cabin, stumbling back into the woods, the sound of the anguished spirits chasing me. I ran until I reached my backyard, collapsing on the grass, gasping for breath. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the yard. I looked back at the woods, and the whispers grew silent, but I knew they would not forget me. In the days that followed, my life became a waking nightmare. I was haunted by visions of the cabin, the dismembered hands and the relentless whispers. Sleep offered no escape. Each night, the shadows stretched longer, their forms were more menacing. I became obsessed with finding out more, spending hours in the library, poring over old newspapers and local legends. I discovered whispers of an ancient witches' coven that once operated in this part of Oregon. They were rumored to perform dark rituals, sacrificing parts of themselves to gain power and eternal life. The intricate tattoo I had seen was their mark, a sigil of binding and control meant to channel dark energies. I realized the finger was part of a failed ritual, a remnant of their last attempt to gain immortality. The coven had vanished, but their spirits lingered, trapped and vengeful. Everywhere I turned, I felt their presence, shadows flickering in my peripheral vision, whispers echoing in my empty rooms. My friends noticed the change in me, but I couldn't explain. Who would believe it? I was alone, trapped in this nightmare with no way out. Desperate for relief, I returned to the library one stormy night, the whispers leading me to a hidden corner where I discovered an ancient journal. It contained detailed instructions for a ritual meant to sever the bond between the living and the dead. The journal outlined each step, meticulously detailing how to perform the ritual using specific items. Black candles placed in a circle around the clearing. Their flames would represent protection and the banishment of darkness. Incense burned to elevate the spiritual atmosphere, drawing the attention of the spirits while maintaining a sacred environment. A personal item, the ring still on the finger, would serve as the personal item of the deceased, strengthening the connection to the lost souls and their unfinished business. A mirror positioned facing the entrance of the clearing. The mirror would symbolize reflection and the ability to see beyond the physical realm, warding off any malevolent spirits. A body part of the deceased. This could be the finger I had found, or another part, serving as the focal point of the ritual, representing the connection between the trapped souls and their plea for release. As I gathered the items with trembling hands, the gravity of what I was about to do weighed heavily on me. The journal warned that the incantation was powerful and could unleash forces beyond comprehension. It was crucial that the words spoken during the ritual remain secret, for the world was not prepared to understand or handle the dark energies that could be unleashed. Knowing everything could lead to chaos, and I couldn't bear the thought of innocent lives being caught in the crossfire. I learned that the next blood moon would be the most potent time for the ritual, a night when the veil between worlds would be the thinnest. As the date approached, I felt an urgency building within me, a sense that I had to act before it was too late. On the night of the blood moon, I returned to the clearing, determined to confront the darkness one last time. As I lit the candles and arranged them in a circle, I felt the air thicken with energy. The shadows began to coalesce around me, whispering frantically, their voices rising in a chorus of pleading and rage. I pressed on, my voice steady as I recited the incantation. The ground trembled beneath me, and a blinding light enveloped the clearing. For a moment, I thought I had failed, but the finger twitched. Suddenly, bone, muscle, veins, and skin began forming, growing out of the finger like a tree sprouting into a large man. The ring gleamed as if it had been polished anew, and before I knew it, the man lay lifeless on the ground in a new body. The figure was now whole, yet still eerily still, as if caught between life and death. His features were still indistinct, shadowed by the remnants of the dark energies that had once bound him. I felt a mixture of horror and fascination as I watched, my heart racing. The whispers around me intensified, now a cacophony of voices celebrating his unexpected resurrection. But as the light dimmed and settled, I realized that the man was not awakening. His body lay there, lifeless, just as the finger had been moments before. Confusion and panic surged through me, my mind racing. What had I done? Suddenly, I heard rustling in the trees, and a voice called out from the darkness. A forest ranger drawn by the commotion stepped into the clearing, his flashlight beam illuminating the scene. His eyes widened in horror at the sight of the body sprawled on the ground. "Hands up, don't move," he shouted, drawing his gun and pointing it at me. "Wait, it's not what you think," I pleaded, raising my hands in surrender, my heart pounding in fear. The ranger approached, cautiously stepping into the circle of the candles. The moment he crossed the threshold, his expression shifted from confusion to sheer terror. He screamed and his body began to decay rapidly, skin withering and crumbling, as if time itself had accelerated around him. No, what's happening?" I shouted, backing away in horror, my mind racing to comprehend the unfolding chaos. It wasn't in the book. I realized with a sinking feeling that there had to be a sacrifice to complete the ritual. Thoughts sent chills down my spine, and I felt a wave of desperation washing over me. How could I have overlooked this? The ranger's screams filled the clearing, merging with a cacophony of voices from the lost souls. The shadows began swirling around the body, one sheepishly gliding next to me, the haunted spirit of the ranger, while the rest swirled into the lifeless form on the ground. I stood frozen, overwhelmed by the horror of what I had inadvertently unleashed. In a panic, I turned and ran, my heart racing as I glanced back. The body twitched and contorted unnaturally, rising slowly, its movements jerky as if struggling against the forces now animating it. I sprinted deeper into the woods, the sound of chaos echoing behind me. I didn't dare look back again, but I could hear the echoes of the ranger's screams mixed with the whispers of the shadows, now a haunting melody that would forever be etched in my mind. Days passed, and the town was buzzing with the news of missing persons. Each report sent chills down my spine, a gnawing guilt settling in my stomach. I had unwittingly unleashed something dark and terrible. The whispers I had heard from the one shadow, the spirit of the ranger, now echoed in my mind, a wretched sound of agony that would haunt me long after. I realized the terrible truth. I was part of a story far darker than I had ever imagined, a pawn in a game of forces beyond my comprehension. And sometimes, just sometimes, I feel a cold touch on my shoulder, a reminder that I am never truly alone.